If you don't know what Sea of Thieves is, the short answer is an open-world sandbox action-adventure pirate game where you can collect treasure, fight monsters, indulge in super thrilling tall tales, and even fight other pirates on the seas. The game has its flaws, but I see one in particular talked about a lot less than the others. Runners. Running away is not cool. Now, before I get walloped in the comments being like, breaking news, grass is greener, that's a lukewarm take, the point of this video is to explain my perspective on two types of sailing away from another player. 1. The justified and understandable reason, and then 2. The petty, uncool party poopers of the sea. Let's dive into the first and acceptable part of turning heel and sailing away. Getting back on your feet. Any person with an ounce of PvP experience in this game knows the feeling of a barely won hourglass or even regular server fight. Holes everywhere, the wheel is snapped, and there's only hopes and dreams on your mast. Well, in most scenarios, the fight is won and you can catch your breath while getting your ship back in tip-top shape so you can continue whatever it was you were doing before. Unfortunately, not all of us live out most scenarios, myself included. Sometimes there are interferences with going about your business. The kind of interferences that wear the ocean crawler set on a fully decked out Xbox galleon that, despite their low level and experience in the player versus player field, seem to be blinded by the fog of war. In most scenarios, players like these are a simple task, like swatting a fly. But the playing field is leveled out a little bit, almost in the area of the enemy having the advantage when your boat is still not recovered from the damage it took beforehand. This makes drooling, mouth-breathing Xbox players a little bit more intimidating when you have one plank on your mast and 4 cannons all lined up and ready to send you to the ferry. In this situation, turning the other direction and setting sail so you can finish your repairs and take a breather is perfectly fine. This is good. This is normal. This is what we like.
Ah, gosh darn it, now I can't third party that hourglass fight that just got done.
Now, to the evil, conniving, lame, stupid idiots of the video. Running to be petty. I speak for most here when I say that frustrating is an understatement when dealing with these types of players. The type of players that for a multitude of reasons, though usually the main one is just being intimidated by other crew's skill, will decide to make the remainder of their session on the game absolute hell and boredom for the other crew who just want to fight. The types of players that have the, well, if you sink me and take my things, you'll ruin my fun, so now I'm going to ruin the fun for you type of mindset. I understand not wanting to lose your treasure. Hell, even sinking is lame, but it's just in the nature of the way the game is played, it's almost impossible not to sink. In all fairness though, it is hard to tell when a specific crew is deciding to leave. There's plenty of reasons that simple PvP enjoyers might miss and label as petty running. A teammate being AFK, no supplies, hell, even wanting to dive for a raid voyage or hourglass. Some people just don't want to fight, and that's okay. Some people have reasons to run at the end of the day. No harm. Unlike the third, secret, and most evil of all types of runners. Red Sea runners. If you thought people who get intimidated by crews and decide to run with their tails in between their legs are the worst kind of player on the game, get ready, because there is a subspecies for this player that really is the evil and bad part of the game. For those who don't know what the Red Sea is in Sea of Thieves, it's basically the furthest boundary of the open world map that when crossed, the water will turn red and start to slowly sink your boat as a warning to turn around. Like the Void in Subnautica, though that area is much more unforgiving. These types of runners use the out-of-bounds self-sinking boat mechanic as a way of annoying and not giving the enemy crew the satisfaction of cannonballs and swords. In the old days of the game, this used to be a serious issue. Players who would stack a bunch of loot, get pressed by a treasure-hungry PvP-thirsty group of goobers, and then decide to set sail against wind, that way they could get untouched and sail right into the Red Sea. You may ask now, well, 07, how was this such a problem back then? Everyone knows loot just floats inside the borders of the map now. That is where you would be wrong. A long time ago, players would realize that they weren't skilled enough to take the other crew in a fight, so rather than trying to make an alliance or a brave last stand like a normal player, they would take all of their loot and run right into the Red Sea. And once they passed that threshold, the loot would remain in the Red Sea at a point where it's physically impossible to retrieve the items that the other crew wanted. Just the pettiest way of saying, I don't get to enjoy this treasure, neither do you. And if you're sitting there and being like, well, honestly, that's valid. It's not, and you were probably the kid that was only invited to birthday parties because the children were forced to send you one. Not only is this just a complete waste of time for a completely innocent crew who have done nothing wrong and are just playing the game perfectly fine, but it's setting a cultural norm in this game that this is okay to act like a baby over treasure, and it's not. This type of behavior was so normalized that even Rare, notorious for not getting along well with its community, had to step in and rework the mechanics of the Red Sea so that the petty babies can't sink with the loot and ruin the fun for everyone else. Well, if they fixed it, what's the problem? The problem is that this behavior is still so normalized. The PvP is beyond fun in this game, yet so many people would rather spend 4 hours running away than attempting to make a final and glorious stand for your things. And it was just recently I ran into the Red Sea Runner type of player, and though it was frustrating, there was one aspect about this particular pirate that made me even more upset. This pirate had a funny blue hat on their head. You see, to obtain this funny blue hat, which is called the Hat of Unfeasibly Glorious Fame, can be obtained through this method. To be won through the hashtag BeMorePirate social media campaign for displaying piratical prowess, either by submission or nomination. It can also be given if individual is selected as a community boatswain by Rare. Which, the name of this hat is crazy. Running with a hat that's named this? Come on. Now basically, this means that this person is super in touch with the content creation and has basically been hand-chosen by Rare, same company that counter-coded the Red Sea Goobers to get this hat. Now, I'm a goober and accidentally deleted the first interaction of my crew against this pirate, but I figured I would use my amazing artistic abilities to tell you the story. Now, first of all, my crew and I are on the Burning Blade just doing camps, minding our business, when we spot another crew at a different skeleton camp we planned on doing by looking at the map table. So we think, well, this crew is messing up the balance of our goals by completing the camps for themselves, so let's remove them from the seas and get back to the camps. We roll up to a camp that they just passed by, under the impression they had shot out and attempted to complete the camp in a drive-by. Well, sure enough, we drop down into the underground section of the camp, and at the very bottom we see this blue hat pirate scurrying into the main room. Now we get inside, and he's attempted to hide. Now, he wasn't given much time, so obviously the best he could do was hide behind a rock where his obnoxious blue hat gave away his position. Now, we weren't trying to be friendly. They were interfering with the progress of our camps, so they had to be removed. Forcefully. And honestly, I expected him to be a good sport about it considering it was a 2v1, and there wasn't much he could have done in this scenario. Except after he's dead, he decided to say this.
Well, wham, bam, blam. We made up 3 of these games for you. Take that, losers.
So, we kind of thought that was just weird. We didn't even do anything. But now we know they're just sailing to ruin the progress of our camps. So now it was personal, and they had to sink. So, we do our due diligence and chase them like a nest of angry hornets, like any sane player would. Except chasing them took much longer than we expected. I will say, we had a good chance at getting them, and I botched my board. I say botched, I got cut up into pieces the moment I saw the anchor, so, oh well. So, naturally I come back, and they are light years away, and I mean there's only so much we can do with catching up, until I realize where we are and what the enemy crew is doing. That's right, Red Sea Runners. So we do our best at catching up, but unfortunately they were persistent into sailing out of bounds and sinking their own ship so that we don't get the satisfaction of doing it. So, alas, we fell victim to it, and thus it convinced me to make this video. Don't run. Taking a final stand against enemy crews for whatever it is you're defending is much more worth it. Obviously you might sink, but it's within the nature of the game, and you can always try again. And don't run to Red Sea. Ever. If you do, I hope you get bees in your tacos.